Welcome to the party. I'm not here right now, but I want you to listen very carefully. These guys are very funny, so pay attention. Enough talk. It's showtime.
Hello and welcome to Bags of Action. My name's Steve and my co-host is Pete.
Hello.
This episode we are talking about the 1987 film Predator as part 3 of our Schwartzology. I can hear that.
Oh, sorry, my phone's just started ringing. I do apologise.
Is that your phone? Is that your ringtone?
Yes, it is my ringtone.
Oh my god. Does anybody ever actually get that, or is it just me?
Most people go, that's a bit ominous. And then occasionally there's a couple of people in work that do recognise it when it goes off. Clients just look at me like I'm a bit odd, but that's fine. It's not a problem.
Okay.
Don't mind.
Okay.
It's all good.
So, this was the classic action film starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, Carl Weathers, Jesse the Body Ventura,
Indeed.
Bill Duke and Sonny Landham, who, after watching the making of today, found to be a much stranger man than I would have realised.
He's a strange man.
And, of course, the wonderful Kevin Peter Hall, who played the Predator, who was a giant of a man.
7 foot 2.5?
2.5 inches, yes, 2.2 metres.
But he refers to himself as 7'4", or did. But
Yeah, well, he's enormous. He's a lovely guy, apparently. He's sadly passed away, but we'll come on to him and some of the other great things. So, Predator, this was a joint choice, really.
Yeah, really. I think if you're doing a 3 Arnie films, you need to include this one. Again, the fact that my ringtone is the Predator theme may give you a slight clue that I might give it more than one bag. But we shall see. Also, this film is the reason this podcast exists, if I remember rightly, because I believe that the CBO Geek Syndicate crossover, where you guys talked about Predator, was what gave me the idea for us doing something action movie related. So,
and the rest of this
yes, indeed. So, if you don't want to listen to this, just turn it off and go back and listen to that episode.
Well, why are you here? Why are you listening to this? It wasn't like you stumbled into it by accident.
That is true.
So this film is slightly deceptive in some ways because it begins with a look of space and a spaceship goes by and a tiny little pod shoots off towards Earth. And it's almost incidental because later on, within sort of 10 minutes, you're in the jungle and things going, and you kind of forget about it. You kind of think, well, what is it? And if you'd never seen this film before, that first scene would have just seemed totally random.
I remember getting nagged at school to watch this film, and I was into action movies, but I wasn't very old, and I was a bit of a wuss. And I think it was a pottery class. I can remember we were throwing pots, and everyone was going, "Oh, you see this film? You see this film?" And I was like, "Oh, I love Arnie films anyway." And they were like, "Yeah, it's like everyone gets skinned alive, and they get their bodies ripped apart, and all this." And I was like, "Yeah, I'll watch that. I'll watch it, yeah." And then didn't watch it for ages. And then in the end, I think I rented it. We've talked this before with our elderly relatives getting us films out. So I went to the video shop with my nan and got this out. And then sat and watched it on my own. And I remember they hadn't mentioned the alien aspect. And I was like, oh, there's a spaceship. That's weird. And then after I thought, oh, that's got to do with anything. Never mind. It's an action movie in the jungle. So, yeah, it does. I like the fact that they're that honest up front. Because you could leave it as a tease all the way through. But I think people might be, oh, this is really grounded in reality. And like, what the heck is that? At least this way you know something's coming. You just don't know what it's going to be.
Yeah, it's interesting. I almost think that if they hadn't shown that first scene, you would have been as equally puzzled as the actors, or as the characters were. And that may have made it even more tense, because there's all this thing of, we don't know what it is and we can't see it. And then as time goes on, we see more than they do, but it still kind of gives it away by showing the ship, by straight away you think, oh, well, what is it? It's an alien. Oh, but there he is. All right, that's what's after them. So... But it's interesting, yes, as you said, they're showing their cards up front.
Yeah, I think the first... again, the ringtone, my ringtone is the theme from this. This is my favourite score of all time.
Wow.
And it's just something about it. Again, I put it on this morning, and I literally could feel the hairs on the back of my neck standing up, because what I love about the music, and you get you get the music straight away, obviously. As soon as the spaceship is flying over, you start to get those things, but it's... I think that the impact that like Star Wars and Superman and Indiana Jones opening themes kind of have on other people, this music has on me.
Right. Wow.
It's got the big orchestral feel, but it's also got the kind of tribal thing in the jungle and stuff. It's, I don't know, there's something very special about it. So it's a film I've seen a lot, but it was quite good to put it back on and feel just as excited as I have the other very many times that I've seen it before. I don't know, if you're like me, I saw it at my nan's house, and I think a couple of days later I plucked up the courage to try and look older than 14 to go and buy it in Woolworths as it was an 18, and did that, and then watched it again. And I think I probably watched it 20 plus times, but I think I've only seen the end about 3 times.
How come?
Because I think what's happened is I've watched it by owning it. But then it's one of those programs that's perennially on TV, isn't it? So you're flicking through the channels like, oh, Predator's on. Let me just watch a bit of this before I go to bed. And you always tend to find it once they're in the jungle. But so the ending, I'd forgotten how... Well, we're not there yet, but the ending surprised me a little bit, actually. Which, considering I've seen it so many times, is a bit weird. But we'll come on to that when we get further in.
So we land in the jungle. There's soldiers everywhere, there's helicopters, there's men, lots of camo gear, and they're all tough SOBs.
And it's an amazing ensemble cast, because I think we're used to seeing Arnie as the lone warrior, he's the toughest guy there is. But when you put Carl Weathers and Bill Duke and Jesse Ventura, and 2 of them have obviously been in other Arnie films as well, because I think Bill Duke was in... Raw Deal?
He was in Commando.
I think he might have been in both, actually. He might have been in Raw Deal and Commando. Jesse Ventura's in Running Man.
Yep.
And so there are 3 kind of powerhouses, because I know that you've seen this, because I sent it to you earlier, but Jean-Claude Van Damme was originally cast as the Predator. All 5 foot nothing of him.
Come on to that.
They get onto set and they go, hang on, these are massive guys. So obviously that was recast. But they are all powerhouses, and I think that straight away you go... Well, I think it's refreshing for me, and that's what I still love about this film, is it's Arnie, it's well and truly this kind of one-man army, but he's got just as interesting characters and just as kind of strong kind of action stars around him, which I think makes it everything the Expendables wishes it was.
Yeah, and he says in the making of, he said, I wanted it to be kind of, I want to do a film that was more like Magnificent Seven, where you've got a team of all these guys that have worked together, they know what they're doing, they're all quite tough. And that's what we ended up here, and they did very well with the casting. And they were saying, who could you have someone that could stand toe-to-toe that looks as big as Arnie, who's just as, bulky, or nearly, and that's how they got Carl Weathers, who was at his peak back then. He was absolutely ripped, which we'll come on to very shortly. So, Arnie and his unit land, they all go off the chopper, and he's there with his... I'm jumping the gun. He's there with his cigar and his sunglasses, and he's a very cool dude.
Yes, they all are. I think it's like every person that gets out of that helicopter gets slightly cooler than the one before. And I love the fact there's this like pregnant pause, and then there's Arnie, Dutch, smoking his cigar, and then how he gets. And they go off in jeeps. It's great. It's a great opening.
Yeah, he's always smoking cigars, and apparently he did it on set as well. And did you hear what Carl Weathers said about this?
No.
So he's like, Arnold's, he's a great guy. He's always smoking his stogies all the time. And then so eventually he ends up lots of scenes with him smoking stogies. And he says, I'm fit. I run. I eat well. I don't really drink. I'm not going to smoke. I don't smoke. He says that all day he's there and he's puffing it and getting the smoke in my face. And after a while I thought, that doesn't smell too bad. And he said, "Want to try one?" So he tried one, and he said, "Carly, want to try a cigar?" So he gave him a cigar, and he tried one, and he really liked it. And he said, "And dang, he got me addicted to those." And so I was having them all the time. And he said, but then a couple of days later, a box of cigars arrived at my house from Arnold.
Nice.
I was like, oh, what a nice guy. Anyway, straight slightly.
I'm assuming
do the film.
Jesse Ventura didn't send him anything to chew on.
Probably a dog's leg, if it was him. We can come on to him.
Yeah.
The more I learn about him, the less I am impressed. Anyway.
Okay.
So this special unit, this hit squad, have been brought together for something.
Yes, but they've and sorry, go on.
I was going to say the general lets them know, lays it out what's happened. That a cabinet minister and his aide have got lost.
Yeah.
They've got the transponder location.
Wrong side of the border.
Yes, they're in guerrilla hands, and so he's like, well, why isn't this the army thing? It's like, well, it's on the wrong side of the border, so we need someone to go in and get him. And bring him out. That's it, a one-day mission.
Dillon, you son of a bitch.
Dillon, you son of a bitch.
Yes, and the person sat in the background is, of course, Carl Weathers, who plays Dillon. And this is where they have the manly handshake, which, there again, shows how big Carl Weathers was.
Yeah, those arms look as big as one another.
Yeah. They just have a proper kind of macho off, don't they? It's like, oh, what's wrong? You're spending too long behind the desk pushing pencils.
It's a bit cheesy, but it doesn't get any. It doesn't, I don't think it's faded at all. The great thing about this film being set in the jungle, especially when you compare it to something like Die Hard, which is, a little bit later, but the same director, because it's in a building with people wearing civilian clothes. That film is amazing, but it looks of its time. Because it has aged. It has aged a lot. Whereas this, because it's in a jungle and everyone's wearing army clothes, or an alien, or spoilers, it's pretty universal.
Yeah. So Dillon, we learned from this, used to work with Dutch back in the day. Now he's joined the CIA and he's become a pencil pusher, even though he's still massively rich.
And we find out that Dutch and his crew passed on Libya because it wasn't their style, because they're a rescue team. They're not assassins. Yes,
straight away you can see there's some kind of different in morality. Yeah, a code between him and Dillon, that Dillon's more grey because he's willing to do that kind of stuff. Whereas Dutch is like, well, no, I'm not going to do that. So that's it. He's going with them on the mission.
Yep.
He'll take over when they get there as well.
That's right. One day in, one day out. And then you get one of the great helicopter scenes of all time.
Go on.
It's just, I've ripped off this scene a number of times in my writing, but there we are. So there's no backup. It's a one-way ticket over the border. And they basically introduce all the characters by massive shortcuts in this scene. So Long Tall Sally is playing. Dutch is starting to get concerned. Hawkins is played by Shane Black, of course. Do you know why Shane Black is in this film?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you want me to say why?
Yes, yeah. Do you all know why?
Do you all know?
Shane Black is in this film?
So they asked him if he wanted to come in and do a write and have a look at the script, because he'd just written this film called Lethal Weapon, and he knew Joel Silver and he knew John McTiernan, the director, and they said, oh, come down, and apparently all the different writers, so we're like, well, why is he looking at it? He said, well, just come down the jungle anyway, and we can rewrite it on set and the rest of it, and so they put him in the film. Yeah. They said, yeah, we'll work something out. So he ended up on the kind of crack unit.
It was also, I think some contractual thing about bringing him so late in as a rewriter, that this made sure he got paid. Because he was building the film, he got paid for playing the part. Because otherwise they didn't have a way to pay him for the rewrites he did.
But I don't know how heavy his rewrites were from the sound of it.
The funny bits. No, I don't know. Who knows? I mean, it's interesting because the writers haven't done much else. Jim and John Thomas haven't done much else at all.
John Thomas?
Yes, it was John Thomas. That's not my fault. That's his name.
Right. Okay.
Speaking of John Thomas, are either of us going to say the jokes? No, we're not. Okay. Fine.
Well, we can use the polite version of that when we get onto it.
Okay.
I think that's probably fair.
Okay.
I mean, this is an R-rated podcast sometimes.
Yeah, that's true. No, it's fine. I'm glad because I was blushing already. But anyway, so yes, Hawkins' character makes lewd jokes about large genitalia. Duke, that wasn't that polite. Duke is always shaving.
Yes, they all seem to have their
Mac's always chewing. Sonny never laughs, and he's always putting war paint on. But they're all trying to psych Dillon out as well, which I really like. Because they've kind of know this is kind of a guy that maybe doesn't think the way that they do, doesn't have that bond that they've got. And although these are shortcuts and they're a little bit stereotypical, it straight away makes you think that they're an interesting, compelling kind of group of people. It's not just Arnie and others.
I'll have to say what Jesse Ventura does. His character's called Blaine.
That's right.
And he loves rock and roll and chewing tobacco. And he's offering it round to everybody, and they're all turning it down. Now, I won't say that all of what he says, but he essentially calls them something rude and saying that they're not having it. Then he says, this stuff will make you a sexual tyrannosaurus, just like me. And they all look at him like he's, in fact, insane. Which he probably is. And the director said, his character, he came in and he was on set and he was enormous and they had to kind of get him to tone it down. I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, what was he like before? Because this is...
See, that can explain things. Again, we're going to jump ahead a little bit, and obviously I'm assuming anyone that's listening to this has seen this film. But he died a lot sooner than I thought he would. If you look at the kind of cast and who they are, maybe that's why. Maybe that was a really like, you know what, kill him off second.
God, he's so loud, he's trying to take over. Just kill him off. God, right, yeah. But yes, he calls them all wusses.
Yes, well, yes.
Enjoying his disgusting habit of chewing tobacco.
Yes, that what he called them did date the film, definitely. I was like, oh, okay, you don't want to be saying that, Mr. Ventura.
So they go over the border. The chopper goes dark, and they slide down the abseil down the line into the jungle.
This is when the music changes, so the big orchestral score becomes this kind of which you kind of get all the way through. Then there's a little kind of
the rendition there.
Yeah, thank you. That's right. Bar mitzvahs and weddings.
So they go into the jungle, and Billy is their tracker. He goes ahead, and they know that some guerrillas took them. And from looking at the tracks, Billy can say that 12 guerrillas took them. But he says there's something else. There's 6 sets of American regulation army boots going through. So there's another unit there for some reason, but they don't know why. They ask Dillon, and he's like, well, no one else should be out here. There shouldn't be any other ops. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, and also the heat seeker was used to bring it down, which means it's a bit more high-tech than they thought.
Yes, they find the downed helicopter, and nobody's in it, and it's been stripped back, which is really weird.
So it's been, as soon as Dutch meets Dillon again, he kind of gets a bit suspicious. The mission's laid out, he gets a bit more suspicious. They talk about it in the chopper, he gets a bit more suspicious. Then this happens, and you're like, this is all... And I think even if we hadn't seen the opening, you start to think, this is not going to go to plan.
No, something's really not going to go well for them. It's going to go bad, and it does really quickly.
It does really quickly.
Billy's tracking, and then he finds something. He's not quite happy, and he sort of wanders over to this tree.
While he's drinking some water from a vine.
Yes, and he finds a man who's been strung up, or several men,
Three men, yeah.
Who've been strung up and skinned.
Yes.
In fact, which is pretty nasty.
No. And, but they can find some dog tags in the entrails. Now, I still don't know the name of this man, because between Arnie and Carl Weathers' accent, I still don't know if it's Jim Hopper or Jim Harper. I think it's Hopper.
Oh, I thought it was Harper.
I think it was Hopper in the chopper. It could have been Harper in the chopper.
Well, either one of them is still good. But yes, so he's dead. Arnie knew him. They were green berets. Yep. And they are kaput, and there's a couple of them still missing, by the look of it. So they suspect the guerrillas have got them. So suddenly it's gone from a missing minister and his aide to several dead Green Berets who've been skinned as some sort of ritualistic thing.
Dillon at this point says he didn't know there was an operation in the area, but it doesn't come across as particularly convincing. And then again, Billy starts to kind of say, well, it was a firefight, they were shooting in all directions, but there are no tracks. So they didn't walk into an ambush. There are no sign of the other men. It's just like they disappeared.
Yeah. And this is where we get something weird. If you'd never seen this film before, you'd think, what the hell's going on? Because you get the first glimpse of somebody else watching them with heat vision.
You do. And again, going back to kind of... This is one of the few films I can really vividly remember the first time I saw it. So I remember the opening with the spaceship. Remember the music coming on, remember getting out of the helicopter and everything else. But I really remember seeing that heat imaging straight away and going, okay, this is something a little bit different, maybe a little bit special.
And all the sounds are distorted. We hear people talking, but it's all kind of fudged together, and it's really sort of high pitched. It's almost like essentially this other person is trying to understand their language, is trying to translate it into something they can understand. So they're all nervous, they're obviously anxious, it's a lot worse than they thought, so Dutch tells them to all go silent for sort of 5 or 10 minutes, and they'll just keep going through the jungle.
But Dillon isn't very good at keeping silent, because that's the one guy I was a bit like, really, has he forgotten it that much? But I guess he's been in an office, so he's forgotten how not to stand on sticks and make a big noise. So he gets this great scene with Mac, who goes, "I bleed you, require, leave here."
I love it.
It's not the way he whispers. It's just he whispers all the time. I hate whispering. It's just one of my things I really cannot stand is whispering. But the exception I will. Oh, don't do that seriously. Oh, no, I have to stop this podcast here when he whispers to me in headphones. I may actually be sick. Sorry, everyone. But Bill Duke is allowed. He's the only person allowed to whisper.
Yeah. Okay.
I didn't like
that.
No, I don't. I really don't like it.
Okay. So they carry on through the jungle, and they find the rebel base.
They do.
This is what puzzled me. So we can see that there's someone else who's a prisoner, and is that one of the other Green Berets?
I think so. Yeah.
Because the people holding him hostage essentially shoot one of them in the head straight away.
Hang on a moment. Who shoots him in the head?
One of the other rebels.
But who's the actor playing that rebel?
I can't say.
Sven Ollie Thorson.
Oh, come
yes,
on.
Yes, it is. And I've never noticed that until today. Because this film has Sven Ollie Thorson, who I think now has appeared in the most films on this show.
Because every time we've done more, he's been in it.
And Richard Chaves, who plays Poncho, was in one episode of Babylon 5.
Wow. Who was in Babylon 5?
Alvarez. In one episode. Okay. So the Babylon 5 and Sven Ollie Thorson of action continues.
Love fest continues.
Yes,
excellent. Okay, so they find the rebel camp. It's really, really busy, though. It's not just sort of 5 guys in a hut. They've got tripwires. They've got a nest with men on the top of it. They've got this old truck set up on bricks, essentially creating a sort of generator, that they're using. So they've been there a while. They're quite dug in. And so before they can do anything, this other Green Beret is executed, and apparently they probably think the rest are already dead. So they're like, right, that's it, we're going to take them all out. And they spread out around the base.
It's great seeing Arnie kind of as a leader as well, because he's a major in this, so he's kind of ushering the others around, which you haven't really seen very often before.
I think this is only the second film I've seen him in, where he's a major.
Yes.
Do you know the other one that he's a major in?
Red Heat?
Commando. And do you know what his name is in
I can't remember.
Matrix.
Yeah,
I'm
John
sure
Matrix. It is John Matrix.
It's Major Matrix.
Yeah. I can remember because, going back to watching films at my nan's, because I watched Raw Deal there, I watched this there, but Commando, she sat and joined me. We sat and watched Commando together.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
The highest body count, and she's back there with that.
She's not a fan of Bennett.
Fair enough. So yes, they're obviously very upset. They've just seen one of their own people killed, and they take out the base, like, properly.
Yeah.
I really like. You don't get this really in films anymore. They just CGI stuff, or they wouldn't do it. But this goes on for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, this would be the biggest set piece in a film now, whereas in here, it's kind of it just gets us to the next section. But I love the fact that he's all professional and Dutch is sending him all to go everywhere. But because they've seen other military guys hurt, they've already started talking about payback. This seems to be payback. Big time.
Yes.
Big time.
Because they kill everybody. They stab people, they cut the tripwires, they go in, Arnie lifts up the truck and puts an explosive in the back of it, runs it down the hill and blows it up, killing a bunch of men in a hut. They shoot guys in the crow's nests. They stab them. They just blow everybody.
This is a stunt fest.
It is, and from watching how they filmed it, it took them quite a while, but they coordinated everything so well. No one got injured, and the number of rounds they let off with, all the bullets flying, and Jesse Ventura carrying a bloody...
painless.
Well, yeah, he's got what's it called?
Gatling gun.
Yeah, it's like a Gatling gun. It's ridiculous. It's the kind of thing they said you'd find on a helicopter. So why you've got this maniac carrying it?
I get the feeling he might have just brought that from home.
Pretty much, yeah. By the look of it, he just had that in his backpack. Here's a pistol. No, I think I'll use this. Okay, he wants to use this.
There's a couple of Arnie one-liners here which really feel out of place in this film.
Right,
go on then. He does stick around when he stabs someone.
Yes.
He does knock-knock when he shoots a door down. But they both feel like they kind of... Almost is on set saying, I tend to do these kind of one-liners, so I'm going to put some of those in. But it doesn't need it. It's not a film that relies on that kind of thing. It feels a little bit out of place.
Yeah, it's a little strange. But so they go in and they kill everybody. Yeah. But this is the bit I didn't quite understand. So they find a bunch of papers in the base. Dillon's really excited because there were some Russian papers. It looks like something was going to go down.
I hit the goddamn jackpot. That's what happens.
But what is it?
When they talk about it, I think it's deliberately vague. So the cabinet minister wasn't a cabinet minister; he was actually a CIA person. And the people they were meeting at base were Russian advisors. Something much bigger was going to go down here, but we never find out what. Just something much bigger.
Right. So we don't know if it was some kind of behind-the-scenes deal.
No, it's because of that. It's I don't know, unless this, something to do with what they're doing, the rebels. But I think we're never really told where we are. I think it was shot in Mexico. We're never really told which border we're over. We know it's South America because I think they mentioned that at some point. Because I think they said the people who'd taken the hostages weren't South Americans. So I don't know whether it's Russians who had taken the CIA guy hostage. And I guess if that's the case, then 987 would have been still Cold War kind of stuff that it could have turned into a big incident, I guess. Yeah. But you need to really dig deep to kind of work that out.
But Dillon's very excited because he's got some papers. Arnie sees someone sneaking up behind him and punches him in the face, or hits him with his gun, and he thinks it's just another guy, but it turns out to be a woman.
And yes, it does.
And he doesn't kill her.
He doesn't kill her, no. And here we get a great line from Jesse Ventura.
Ain't got time to bleed.
The son of a bitch is dug in like an Alabama tick.
Yes, they killed everybody apart from one guy who's stuck up in a crow's nest. Jesse's been shot in the arm by him, and then the other guy says, "Well, have you got time to duck?" or something,
yes,
I think he says.
Great. I really liked Poncho watching it again. He's a character kind of, because he's not a particularly well-known actor, but his character's much more interesting than I remember. I think to watch it again as like a counterpoint from some of these kind of over-the-top people. And I will still say, if I ever get a paper cut in work, I will still say I ain't got time to bleed. So,
brilliant. Excellent. A good classy line, though. Yeah. Yes, they eventually kill that guy. And then we eventually find out that Arnie's obviously not happy. He slams Dillon up against the wall and says, you did this to us.
You dropped the six of us into a meat grinder.
That's very good, that. He says he's changed. And he's set them up.
Yeah, I woke up. And then he says a line which has influenced things a lot in the future, up to now, because he says, "You're an asset, an expendable asset." And I'm used to getting the job done, and my men are not expendable, and they don't do this kind of work. Which to me is, well, we're not expendable, we're doing this kind of work, but many years later, we're going to make a film called The Expendables about the guys who do this kind of work. Which I'm assuming is where that's come from, because Expendables wants to be this film desperately with all its heart.
Oh yeah, it really does.
So I think that's where the name comes from. I assume.
Sounds like it, but well, anyway, we'll come on to that. So yes, it's the camp is done. They've got everybody. Dillon takes the girl hostage, saying she's useful. She'll have information.
But they think that she's going to give their position away. And then you find out that the only way they can get picked up by the chopper is if they go over the border, because they're not going to come into enemy, we don't know who they are, but the enemy territory. And then Billy says that the only way out is a valley that leads to the east, but he kind of basically that's just not a good way to go. So it's been pretty unmanageable jungle already, but this is going to get a lot worse.
Yes, they haven't really got much of a choice. So they go and leave the base. But then we get this other angle again that we can see somebody's watching. And a great moment here with Mac where he says to Dillon,
"Oh yeah."
No, he doesn't. I think he just says, "Turn around."
He goes over here. He goes over here, and then he goes, "Turn around." That's right. Turn around.
And he stabs a scorpion. He gets a big knife out, and you think he's going to kill him, but he stabs him in the back. And you think, what? And it's a scorpion that he's killed. Yep. And shows it to him, drops on the floor, and squashes it under his boot. And then they walk off. And then you see this other person watching, and the language keeps running through over and over and over. Over here, over here, over here, over here. As he's learning the language gradually, and then he comes down this thing, whatever it is, and picks up the scorpion and looks at it on his hand.
And okay, it's half an hour into the film by now. Okay, he's very close to them. we've seen this something in the trees, but now it's close enough to pick up something they just left behind. So,
and it's still warm, so it's not easy. He's right on their trail. Very, very dangerous.
And you also get Hawkins gets to tell his second joke. Again, I won't say it here, unless you really want me to. But Billy actually laughs for the first time. And I'm only saying this now because there's a reference to it much later in the film, but Billy laughs out loud. So he's been kind of very pent up and has not really reacted to anything, but whether it's the stress of the situation or what have you, he just basically just this massive, massive laugh that kind of echoes around the place.
Yes, and then it copies him and is copying that laugh again, which is pretty creepy.
Yep.
So then they carry on and they're going towards this valley.
Which makes a valley that makes Cambodia look like Kansas.
Yeah, yes. So they've seen some jungle before. It's obviously a bit weird.
Yeah, I quite like this thing because... when they're on their first helicopter and the second helicopter, these are like the epitome of cool. They're tough guys, that unshakable. But then they see the guys who've been skinned. They go into this fight in the camp, which is quite tough. And then now they're going to a thicker part of the jungle. And even before the reveal, they're already starting to get a little bit nervous. And starting to, which I think that's what obviously in some ways it's a typical haunted house film, haunted house. But I think I quite like the fact that it's not the everyman; it's actually these super tough mercenaries. But you can see the humanity in them coming through as they get more and more frightened.
Yeah. And so, Billy's there tracking. Now racial stereotyping aside, they do this where he's, I don't know, some kind of Native American, perhaps. Yeah. That's what they're suggesting. So he's the tracker, and he's got a sort of sixth sense. Now, he could have been anybody, but they made him an Indian, so a Native American, so fair enough. But I do like the idea that somebody has a sixth sense, that somebody else has got an intuition that the others haven't, and that they say Billy's been spooked all morning, and as he carries on into the jungle, have left the camp, and then he gets to a certain point and just stops. And they all hold up, and he's just stood there watching the jungle, and he's got, I don't know, a medicine stone or something in his hand around his neck, and he's touching it, and he's just watching the jungle. And they say, what is it? And they don't know. So Arnie creeps forward and sort of taps him on the shoulder, and he's not listening. He says, Billy. And he's not there until he touches him. He goes, what is it? And he goes, there's something out there in the jungle. And then they keep showing you the shot of the trees, and I'm there going, what? Where? What is it? What is this? And they're really ratcheting up the tension at this point.
And then Anna we don't know if she's called Anna at this stage, sorry. The lady, may or may not be called Anna, makes a run for it. And then Hawkins grabs her, and then he gets killed. Yes,
something kills him and splashes his blood all over her face. And then he's just dragged off into the jungle, and she's sat there absolutely petrified.
Yeah, and then so Shane Black is no more. He only had 2 jokes, so they had to kill him off. So Poncho goes to look for him, but he doesn't find a man. He finds entrails.
Yeah, he says, have you found him? He's like, I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? And they go and look, and there's just bits, which is pretty creepy.
And so they're asking the lady, whose name we don't know at this stage, what happened, and she basically says the jungle came alive and took him.
Yeah, no, we didn't really see what it was. All we saw was a kind of blur. We don't really know what it looks like at this point. There's just something there. And it's really creepy. It's just really, really creepy. So they say, right, this is just like what happened with Harper/Hopper.
Jim.
Him. Jim. So they say, right, spread out, find the body. I want to find the body. And they start looking for it, and obviously they're not finding it. And then we get this great tracking shot where there's blood dripping on some leaves.
Yep.
And think, oh, what's that? And then it goes up the tree a bit, and you can see the blood running down the trunk, and it goes further and further, and it keeps going up and up and up. And you think, God, how tall are these trees? And you get really far up, and then right at the top,
the top half of Hawkins.
Yeah, hung upside down by his feet, naked for some reason, because they didn't take his pack or his gun. No. Or his radio, anything.
And you also, having seen what happened to the other guys earlier on, you know this is only an interim measure, and at some point his skin will be coming off.
Pretty nasty.
Not nice.
No. So, yes, they're all obviously rattled, and Isn't this where they dig in and they first make a...
Well, this is where Blaine... Do they dig in? I'm trying to remember.
No, I think you're right. I think they... No, they don't. So they're looking for him.
They're looking for the bus. They've split up, and Blaine and Mac are pretty, inseparable. They are.
Good
we don't
friends,
really know into a little bit later, but they're kind of very good friends. They kind of seem a lot closer than the rest of the crew. So Blaine has got old Painless, his crazy gun, and this is I really like this, and I kind of spoiled it earlier, but you don't expect him to get hit. Your normal kind of order of these things would probably be maybe Poncho after Hawkins, if they're kind of going with the least likely to survive through to the most likely at the end. But he's hit straight away. And then Mac looks up and sees kind of some green eyes. And you start to see, we kind of see a shape. But he sees these green eyes that kind of appear and disappear. And then he absolutely loses it. Because his best friend has just been shot. Essentially, the middle of him has been shot out, isn't it? And there's a massive gaping hole in Jesse Ventura.
Because he got shot in the shoulder,
right.
And he turned around, and the thing shot him from behind and just like blew a massive hole in his chest. But it was like we don't even know what it was. It was some kind of like laser rocket launcher thing, because it was so hot. They're saying it cauterized the wound. They're saying, well, what is it? There's nothing like that we know could do that. What kind of weapon could do it? So, Mac loses it. Absolutely
so
loses
he starts shooting like crazy into the trees. Then when his gun runs out of ammo, he picks up old Painless and starts shooting that. And then this is the bit that it's like, how much ammo did they take with them? Because and how much could they physically carry? Because then they all turn up and they all shoot a ridiculous amount of shots into the trees.
Yeah, and it goes on for like a minute. Yeah. Until all the guns are empty.
And the end of this scene is brilliant because Mac has literally lost it, completely lost it. He's a gibbering wreck, really, by this stage.
Yeah,
and his best friend is dead, and he's shooting with old Painless, and at the end, it's really good sound design as well, because you can hear the chamber going round still. But he can't, because there's nothing left, but he's obviously still pulling the trigger, so he carries on for probably another 10 seconds. So a bit like the moment where Billy is silent, staring into space. This is someone staring and pulling the trigger. So these super cool, kind of untouchable mercenaries are now prey.
Well, they're scared. Yeah. They're rattled. They're absolutely petrified because now 2 of their own have been killed and they haven't really got a clue. And the irony is they shot all those bullets, but it was Mac's own gun in the first couple of seconds that clipped it.
Yeah, because because he's so quick he could get away. And it's only really, at this point, it's quite interesting because it's only really Dutch that's thinking like a soldier, because they're all starting to lose, they say, as she said before, there's no powder burns, no shrapnel, the wound is cauterized, so who did this? But Dutch straight away starts calling Mac Sergeant to try and get him thinking straight. And then Anna finds some green blood, but hides it and wipes it on her trousers, doesn't she? And the one thing I would say about this is Blaine, they take him and they bury him, and then...
No, they don't. They put him in his poncho and take him with us,
That's right.
They say.
That's right. Sorry.
They say, put him in his poncho, take him with us. And they're saying, right, this is it. We're not going anywhere. We're going to deal with this. So they dig in, and this is where they create a defensive position with traps and mines and tripwires, the lot, everything.
I don't think that's yet. That's not yet.
No, it is, because they do it twice, you see.
Do they do it twice?
So they do this... And then you get this nice moment with Mac where they've dug everything in, and Mac goes down and sits with Jesse in his poncho.
Okay,
and
that's
says,
what he's talking
how's a drink?
Yeah.
Yeah, he has a drink.
But one thing I'd say about this scene as well is you get this nice kind of reverie or whatever. The music comes in and everything, and everyone's really upset. No one gave a shit about Hawkins at all. Hawkins is dead. Never mind. They make such a big fuss about Blaine. I know it's because of Mac and his relationship, but it just felt a little bit rude.
Well, maybe because they haven't found a body. Maybe they're hoping he's still alive. Maybe.
We also see the Predator administering first aid on himself at this point, don't we? When he starts to give himself stitches and then scream in pain. And it's the first real look at the kind of Stan Winston design.
Special effects, yeah, which is amazing stuff. Even now, looking at it, the way it kind of opens this unit, and it's got all these it's got these sort of steel implements that you would find that look quite medically now. If you look at sort of modern medicine, they look quite normal in a way. but they're all really sort of small and special, and he sealed something up and then put some kind of like powder on to burn it closed and clips it closed with a stapler or something, which is all kind of stuff you'd find in modern, today. Yeah. But yes, so he screams, and then Anna her head kind of jerks up, as if she heard it, but I don't know that she did. That's what's the weird thing about it.
And also at this point, they're asking Mac what happened, and he's like, these eyes, they disappeared. I shot 200 rounds, a full pack, nothing on this earth could withstand it, not at that range. And then Billy, ominously, who hasn't said anything for quite some time, just says, there's something out there waiting for us, and it ain't no man. We're all going to die.
Yes. Now, I didn't know at this point, I have not seen it in a while, if he meant that essentially we can't win, it's going to kill us, or he's being philosophical in that, well, we all die.
I think it's the first one.
Which is a real downer.
Yeah, it's not. I don't think he's the motivational officer in this team.
No.
But the thing is, you see, Dillon is still being very gung-ho, isn't he? He's still, he doesn't believe it could be anything other than some guys. We've got to keep going. And it's as you said, you get this touching moment where Mac is on watch, and he's talking about old missions and walking out without a scratch on them, and he'll cut his name into whoever did this to his friend.
Yeah. And so then they're all asleep. Mac is on watch, and something comes in to the camp.
Sets off the trip.
The flare goes off. Mac goes crazy. He jumps on it, pulls out his knife. It's squealing. It's making these weird noises, and he's stabbing it and stabbing it and stabbing it. And they get there, and it's a pig. It's a giant sort of hog.
Yeah.
But it's like massive. It's like 4 foot long.
Yeah.
It's this monster of a thing, and they're like, oh, that's just ridiculous. And then they go, where's Blaine's body? And they realise that it sent the pig in, and whilst they were distracted,
it came in, didn't sell for any of the other tripwires, and took Blaine away.
And there's no trail. Like, how could it do that? And where's the trail? Why is there no trail? And it's gone. It took his body. And it's like, well, why? Why is it taking the body? And that's the kind of thing. It's like it's the head scratcher. It's like, if it's already killed him, why is it taking the body?
And then I think, is it Dutch who says it's a hunter? It's killing us. Someone said, at this point they realise it's a hunter, and then Dutch says he thinks he's using the trees.
Yes, so Dutch is looking around, and he says it's using the trees. And that's when Anna says, in English, she says, no more bullshit to her, and she talks. And says, before when you shot it, when the big man died, she said, I found blood on the trees. And this is where you get to mutter the immortal line, if it bleeds, we can kill it.
He does.
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
And we found out at this point that the chopper's 12, so we've got this kind of deadline now. The chopper's 12 miles away, and they've got the choice to try and go to the chopper, or get to the chopper, which he says many times in this film, far more than I realised. But Dutch is like, well, we can go towards the chopper and all get killed, or we can make a stand and possibly all get killed. And again, yes, because he says, if it bleeds, we can kill it. So then they're setting up the big traps, using the trees.
Lots of bending of trees this time. Yeah. Yes, I thought, wow, they do that a lot in this film, more than I realised.
They do. And then Anna, which I wish she told us earlier, she tells us about the legend, which essentially is the Predator folklore through all the kind of films and everything else.
But this bit, I'd forgotten about this. I kind of remembered it vaguely, but having watched it again, and I was thinking, I understand why they did more films, because of this one moment. Yeah. And because obviously the film was successful, but it's this one moment that gives them something that they can use.
Suddenly they've got a franchisable concept. It's not just an Arnie film.
I love the idea, though, that, throughout history, there's always been ghost stories and folk tales about, El Chupacabra and Bigfoot and all this kind of thing, and people saying, oh, well, it's spirits or it's demons or this, that, and the other. And never once has anybody said, well, it was an alien, wasn't it? No, if you go back and look at any things, no one has ever kind of just pointed at that. They always point at something that's here, a spirit, a creature, or something. And essentially she says, but this is interesting, she said, it only comes on the hottest years.
This year's very hot, and we always find our village men with no skin.
Do you know, my grandmother used to tell them stories that you'd find men without their skins.
And they called him the demon who makes trophies of man.
And that's why it's taking the bodies. And I thought at this point, okay, so is the one Predator that's sent here by himself, is it like a trial in order to become an adult? Or is it just something that they do for fun? Is it like a test of manhood, like before you can be considered a member of society or something? Do you do this? Is this what it's about?
It feels like it could be. I haven't seen the other films enough. Because I've seen probably Predator 2 twice. I know a lot of people who really like that film. I think the interesting thing, although I love the Predator lore, I think what I like about this film so much is more the military side of it and the group of guys. So anything that isn't that didn't feel quite right. But I've only seen Predator 2 probably twice. The AVP films probably once each. I've seen Predators, which
I've not actually. I've not seen about that.
Okay, it's as like one in a chain of these events, and another hot, although it's not on Earth, another hot situation is good. But occasionally, although it's supposed to be a sequel, occasionally it slips into replaying scenes as a bit of a reboot thing, and that just felt a bit weird. Interestingly, I saw the film and thought it was okay, then I read the graphic novelisation because it just happened to be in my local library, and I much preferred that. I much preferred reading it than watching it.
Okay. Okay. So, so we've suddenly found out that it's this thing. It's been coming here, potentially the same one, as far as we know, for a long time, possibly centuries, to hunt and kill people, and using them as trophies. So they set the trap, and it falls for it. I love it that they've done this. They've put wires in the trees all around. The only place they haven't is they've covered the floor in kind of trip wires and this kind of stuff, and it doesn't come out. There's nothing happening. So Arnie walks out to bait it, doesn't he?
That's right.
He's stepping over the little peg things.
He lures it in, and it does. And I'd forgotten this happened completely, but it's in the net and it's up in the air, and you can kind of see the shape because there's more kind of leaves and stuff on it, so you start to get.
You can hear it. You can hear it kind of screaming at the fact that they've caught it, and then it starts going crazy. It just starts shooting in all directions, shooting its kind of laser thing on its shoulder to try and escape, and then it drops out of the net. Why they didn't all shoot the net at that point, I don't know. But anyway.
That's a good point. And as it's shooting, it hits Poncho?
Yes. No, it hits the trap, which strings the massive tree trunk, one of the ones they rigged. That's right. And it slams Poncho in the chest, essentially sort of caving in his chest.
And I think that Tim Roth in Reservoir Dogs has definitely seen this film because he makes the same noises when he's been shot. As Poncho makes here, this kind of whelping noise.
And then it goes off in the jungle, and Mac goes after it, and he has lost it.
Yes.
He's like properly cracked because he starts singing, but he's doing the kind of Bill Shatner thing of speaking the lyrics. Gonna talk about I'm listening to
and it's obviously it is Long Tall Sally, which is a throwback to the start of the film because that's what was playing in the helicopter
music. And he's just absolutely mad. And they're saying, look, leave it.
Yep. We get
Dillon says, I'll go and get him. Yep. We'll go for the chopper.
And then, so this is lots of things happen in this scene. So Mac is starting to lose it. Arnie says get to the chopper for the first time because he's realised they're not gonna be able to do anything else. And then I think Carl Weathers is amazing in this film. I love his performance here because this is the point where he's going to go after him, but actually he's doing it for the right reason. He's not just going after him because it was his mission. He's basically realised that he's put everyone here at jeopardy. He'd already got Harper killed, and actually kind of his rite of passage in a way is to kind of go after Mac and kind of put things right. Yeah,
he says, I'll get him, you just keep going. Anna's now helping, they've cut her free. Yep. She's helping Poncho to walk. He's like, I can make it. So her, Arnie, and Poncho are going for the chopper.
And Mac is in the jungle and Dillon's behind him trying to find him. And then I think we start to hear, for the first time, the Predator playing lines from earlier in the film to try and entice them. So he starts playing earlier lines from Mac. And it gets a bit confused. It's like, is it Mac calling him, or is it Mac?
I don't... You see, I'm still not sure. Because you hear this, over here. And he did say that earlier, but then as he wanders over,
he's there.
He grabs Dillon and pulls him in. So it must have been going towards the sound of his voice, and yet it was exactly the same line word for word. Obviously, it's not a big line, but I just kind of wondered that. So I think it wasn't the Predator because it doesn't know where they are.
But I think it is later, and I think it's probably got confused between this and a later scene. But then they can both see the Predator sat on a ledge, and
it's not looking at them; it's looking off in a different direction. It's still in camouflage, but they can see it against the trees because they're actually looking for it. They can see it sat on.
And I think as well, Dillon sees it, which is important because he's been the kind of the remaining doubting Thomas, but not doubting John Thomas.
He's the writer.
Yeah, that's true. So he sees it, and then Mac gets a little bit headstrong, probably the right word.
Nice.
And goes in, and as soon as he goes in, the laser sight is on him. Those kind of that triangular kind of 3 dots, and his head is blown off.
Yes, Dillon was going to go one side, Mac was going to go around the other side to flush him out. But it doesn't work because it just follows Mac and shoots him in the head.
Yeah.
And Dillon then sees that Mac is dead when he gets to this designated point, and he can see it in the trees, and he sees it start to run.
Yep.
And I think he then shoots it, but it sees him at the same time or something.
And this is the point, actually, the Predator starts playing Mac's voice, because we just see Mac die, and he's still talking.
Yeah, that was creepy. That was super creepy.
Yeah.
So it sees Dillon, and it essentially shoots off his arm.
Yeah, Dillon sees the eyes.
Yes.
And that's what makes him lift his gun up, and then, his arm gets shot off.
Which is grim, because the arm gets blown off, lands to the floor, and it's still twitching and shooting.
Yeah.
Oh, it's proper grisly.
And of course, many years later, lost his arm again in Happy Gilmore. Which I've always thought was a reference to this film. Maybe it wasn't, but, how many times...
I've not seen it.
How many times can one actor lose his arm? I don't know. At least 2 is the empirical evidence thus far.
Well, but Paul Rudd did Anchorman. Doesn't he lose his arms completely and then does again the second one?
True.
Or something like that, I think.
True.
Anyway, so he sees it, he shoots... I don't think he actually catches it, but he shot them with one machine gun and missed. His arm gets blown off. He starts to aim with the second machine gun, and it runs up to him and just stabs him in the chest and lifts him off the floor with its sort of 2-pronged blade.
And this is the point, I think, where it's gone from hunting them from a distance to being a lot more primal, like say, he can kind of see their eyes, they can see his eyes, and it's a lot more...
personal.
Yeah, a lot more personal.
Up close and personal, yeah.
And we find out at this point as well, the reason Anna wasn't killed before is because she was unarmed, so there's no sport. My suggestion, everyone put your guns down.
And then just run.
And you'll be fine. But I guess, because they're soldiers and they have used guns, it's a different thing. But then, Billy gets his moment now. We've already had Dillon's moment, and now Billy, doesn't want to be frightened anymore, knows that they're all going to die, so they're walking across a log, or, a fallen tree across the water. He throws his gun in, rips off his top, carves into his own chest with his knife, and then, I'm not sure what happens after that. Actually?
Well, so he essentially sort of waits for it, and they're running with Poncho, trying to get him away. And then we see its point of view as it sees Billy waiting for him on the log with his knife out. And then it goes back to them running through the woods. And it's like 3 seconds later you hear Billy screaming. Yeah. I'm thinking, wow, he didn't last very long at all. If it went for old hand to hand, he probably didn't even get one shot at all. It's just killed him. Dead. Yeah. That's it. And I'm like, wow, okay. Anna goes to pick up a gun. Right. And Arnie says, no, don't. And then she sees something over his shoulder, and she still goes to get the gun. So he kicks it out of the way. It shoots Poncho through the head, kills him. It clips Arnie. And then he starts shouting, get to the chopper! Go, run, get to the chopper! And then she legs it whilst he tries to essentially crawl away because it's stalking him.
And this is the bit where I remember thinking, okay, right, so we're down to Arnie versus the Predator, which even if you were watching this the first time, you'd know that's where we were headed. And I always thought this was like a 5, maybe 10-minute scene, but it's like half an hour.
Yeah.
It's a lot longer than I remember. And I didn't remember it in much detail at all. So it was having followed along almost word for word up to this point, it was good to actually kind of watch this bit a little bit fresh.
Because he falls off the cliff first.
Right.
He starts sliding through the jungle, flies off a cliff, lands in the river, then he goes over a waterfall, then he kind of swims along a bit, gets to the shallows, and collapses. And you think, he can catch his breath. And straight away, boom, it lands in the water behind him.
And takes about a second to get to where he is. Yeah, he goes through the same journey that he's had over a couple of minutes in a matter of seconds. And you can see, I think it's one of the few times you see in a film, in Arnie's eyes, is pure fear. But the next bit is a little bit of luck, really, which, because he's come through this kind of, he's crawled out of the water, he's covered in mud. And I think it's luck. I'd like to think it was intentional because it makes it better, because if it's just a fluke, then it's a bit weird. But he's covered in mud. So that means he's got no heat signature. Well, it is a fluke, actually, because at this point, he wouldn't know.
He doesn't know, it's a fluke.
The Predator comes out of the water, we get a first full look of him. The height of him, the full kind of what he looks like, or what we think he looks like. But yeah, he can't see anything. There's no heat signature, so he shoots a possum instead of Dutch. And then Dutch realises, basically, he can't see me.
Yes, but he's lost everything at this point. All of his friends are dead. He's got no weapons. His gun is gone.
Yep.
And I think he's down to a knife and 2 explosive rounds, like a grenade launcher.
He's going to need to bend some more trees. Pretty sharpish.
He does.
So he makes. So at this point he's invisible, and he knows that he's invisible. So while he's invisible, he starts. Yeah, this is the bit that the hunter becomes the hunted kind of thing, isn't it? And so I think it's quite clever because all the way through the film we haven't been able to see the Predator, and now the Predator can't see Dutch. So Dutch is in the position that he was. So it's very back to basics. He makes bows and arrows. He uses gunpowder and wraps it in leaves.
To create an explosive sort of arrow. But we also, so here's the weird thing. While he's doing all of his, what does Carl Weathers calls it, Boy Scout shit earlier when he's making the traps. So whilst he's doing all of that, you get to see the Predator doing its side.
Yeah, ripping out Billy's skull.
So he rips out his spine with his skull attached, and then we see it kind of treating it with some sort of, antifreeze or something to make it nice and shiny.
Cleans it off, sort of stroking it,
He does, and then we see he's like, he's looking at his toys, and he's got a skull collection.
Yeah.
It's like,
the demon that makes trophies of man.
Yes, but it's got that thing of suddenly you had hunter and prey, and it's now shifted the dynamic for the first time in the film. They understand each other better. We know that it hunts people, we know that it makes trophies of them, but now Arnie knows what this thing is. And we see it kind of sterilizing its blade with its lasers, and Arnie's not waiting for it to come to him. He's not just waiting and sitting there and cowering and praying. He's preparing a trap.
And I like this bit. He starts to do, the way he's putting the mud on is a bit like, obviously it's camouflage, but it's also a bit like war paint. It's a bit like Billy. It's almost like he's taken on the traits of all of his men in one go, and he salutes, and he's digging deep, and I think he gets the feeling that he's thinking about all the people who've died, and that he's the only person that can get kind of payback, but without having to say it. And then it's very primal. He comes out kind of waving a big flame on a stick, and then he just does this big kind of primal roar. So it's very animalistic, him and this alien.
They're going head to head for the first time, and this is where it all kicks off.
Yes.
So I love this. You get this kind of callback where it comes down to he's created a big fire for it, and it comes down to see what's going on and see where Arnie is, and he gets out one of his explosive arrows and shoots it.
Yeah.
And I think he clips it. He doesn't really hurt it very much. He just clips it one. But then you get this turnaround because he's still covered in mud and he's, cuddling a tree, basically, so he can't see. And it shoots wildly all over. Yeah. But it misses him. Yeah. And this is, of course, going back to where they killed the jungle big time and did nothing. Yeah. So it can't see him. It shoots, so it goes crazy. It shoots all over with its kind of rocket launcher thing.
Clever. It's so clever, the way they flip it around.
I didn't realise that until this time.
No,
but it misses every time.
Yeah. He does. And also you can, because he's fired an arrow which explodes, there's a backdrop. So he was camouflaged, but now there's these flames behind him. So actually, Dutch has got a perfect view of who he's shooting at.
Yes. Yeah.
And I like thinking, and Arnie's swinging off on ropes. Very strong ropes. He's a large man. And I like the fact that they're both shooting each other. They're both bleeding. They're both struggling at this point in equal measure, really.
But it's still got the upper hand because he can't see it very well. So he does this thing where he doesn't know where it is. So he throws a rock, bounces off a wall. It immediately turns and shoots something. And just as he's kind of aiming and getting ready to throw another, I think he's got like a spear, he's going to throw at it. It triangulates and reverses the angle of where the stone must have come from and shoots towards him and gets so close. I think it clips him. And the tree explodes in front of his face or something.
That's right. And like I say, it is that big role reversal. And then there's green blood starting to drip into the cave where Dutch is hiding. And he runs up and jumps off. And I love this moment. But he falls and then straight in a pool of water, which obviously means the mud has been washed off.
Yes.
And suddenly the advantage that he had has been lost. Completely lost. And then, because of that, it can find him. And this is where the 7'2.5" or 7'4" comes into play. Yeah. Because, most of the cast are over 6 foot. But he gets somebody on camera, gets to pick Arnie up and make him look tiny.
Yes, because it appears and it decloaks. It turns off its camouflage armour, grabs him by the throat and picks him up. And then gets its face really close to his. Now, at this point, I think it's looking at his skull as a trophy. Do you think that's what it's doing?
It's really weird because, as you say, he takes off the armour, he keeps his arm brace on, which he needs later, but he's taken off. And I think, up to this point as well, because it's not as if, it's not the internet age where we'd have all seen the design before. As far as we knew, that mask could have been his face.
Yeah, but it's because it grabs Arnie's face, it's tilting it left to right. Now, we know it looks at skulls and it likes skulls. I think it's studying his skull, like it's going, this will be an interesting trophy, and that's kind of what it's doing.
That's right, then it drops him. That's right, so it does that first, apologies.
Yeah.
And then it drops him, and I thought, why has he dropped him? And he's like, well, maybe there's more sport. If he just kills him then there's no sport, but then he takes his helmet off, and starts laying down his weapons.
That's right. He takes off his shoulder thing, takes off his mask, and Arnie says, "You are one ugly mother fudger."
And you see, you get to see, because again, at this point, first time watching it, I didn't know there was another face under. I didn't know it was a helmet. I didn't know there was a face underneath that was going to open out. And what I love about this is both things are equally iconic. So if you see the Predator in the mask, it's still a breathtaking sight, and if you see it underneath it is as well. Whereas in some things, one would have been stronger than the other. But then he's throwing Arnie around literally like a toy.
He's absolutely beating him to a pulp. And he's just pounding him.
The thing here, which I'd never realised until watching it again today, is that I always thought the heat signature was to do with the helmet. But his helmet's gone, and he's still seeing him as a heat signature. So it's obviously actually the way their eyes work.
Yes, but the helmet obviously helps focus it a little, because when he takes it off, everything's really red. There's no kind of separation. It's a lot harder for him to see on. He can see him, but not nearly as well. You get that great moment with the camera where the helmet comes up and it all just goes red.
That's true.
But yes, Arnie's losing. He's losing badly physically to this thing because he punches it and nothing happens. It just looks at him and clicks and punches him.
So the only way he's going to do anything is if he sets a trap. Mm-hmm. So he kind of tucks himself in. Come on, do it! Kill me! I'm here! Do it now! It's longer than that, and it sounds more like Arnie than that. But he's taunting him in, but he's making it so obvious because it's his last hope, really. Now, I think the Predator's like, well, hang on a second.
It's not that stupid. No. It's come from outer space. Yeah. It's hunted people before, and it's going, well, blatantly trying to goad me in there for some reason. I'm
not Jean-Claude Van Damme. I can work this out.
So it goes round the other side, and he's like, oh, shit.
And yes. And then, what do I do? Well, the trap that he'd laid was a kind of stick that would have been knocked, like a tripwire stick. So he has to reach with his legs and kick it out. And that means a log very quickly drops on the predator.
It's a massive, like tree that he's hoisted up, and you're thinking, is that going to swing? But it doesn't. It lands right on its kind of head and smacks it, and you're thinking, oh God, that's it. It's dead.
Yeah.
It's over. But then it's like,
as we know in these films,
it's not. It's not over because it starts to move, and you think, oh no. But it doesn't do the comeback. It doesn't do that thing of where. That Michael Myers horror thing where it's dead and it gets up and keeps going. You're like, I like the fact that we know it can bleed.
Yeah.
So in horror movies, when you get these unkillable things, you kill them, you chop them up, and then, oh look, I'll get up again.
Then neck clicks back into place.
Yeah, and it's just such bollocks. It's always like, oh, it's just ridiculous. So he's not supernatural. We've seen him bleed. We know that he can die. Well, sorry, we know that he can hurt.
And he's had a massive tree dropped on his head.
Yes. So Arnie goes like, oh God, picks up a massive rock, looks over the other side, and it is toast.
It's spitting green blood.
It is properly busted up. Its face is bleeding and cracked. One of its mandibles has come off.
It looks like Gilbert from Get Fresh at this stage.
It's a mess. It is really dead. And he's
what the hell?
You're like, well, that's it.
And then he goes, what the hell are you? And then Predator plays it straight back.
But I actually think it's asking him.
Okay.
I don't think it's playing it back. I think it's actually asking him. It says, "What the hell are you?" As if to say, "Well, why are you asking me that? I'm a predator. What are you?
Yeah.
What are you?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's kept its arm thingy on, and it sets it to self-destruct because a bit like the others, I guess, a bit like Billy and to a certain extent Dillon, he knows he's going to die. So, if I'm dying, you're going with me. And then which I think is a great moment, he starts to laugh, but it's not. But it's Billy's laugh.
I don't know. I think it's Michael. I think it's the actors laugh.
Really, because I thought it was Billy's laugh. Because when Billy hadn't laughed through the whole thing, and then he has that one joke, and he laughs so much it echoes off the trees. I thought it was that being replayed. So that I thought his whole kind of language was a construct of what everyone else has said to him.
But when it says, "What the hell are you?" that's its voice. It's not Arnie twisted and played back. I think that's its own voice. So when it starts to laugh, I think it's actually the actor. I think it's Kevin Peter Hall's laugh that's massively loud, and it's so creepy. It's such a kind of, because you're thinking, oh no. Arnie is chosen. It's like, run! But to use David Barry's again, he's not run, he's chipping.
Chip into the chopper with Hopper.
Absolutely.
And then we see the chopper, and you know who the pilot is of the helicopter?
Yes.
Okay.
Go on, tell everyone who doesn't know.
It's Kevin Peter Hall. And he get there so quickly. He was just down there a minute ago. I think they wanted to give him some screen time where he wasn't wearing a massive prosthetic.
Yeah, because they said he's been such a good sport. He never complained, and he was such a good guy. They wanted to get his face on screen instead of just him in costume. And it explodes, and you see a mushroom cloud above the jungle, and the general's like, what the hell? And they go down, and the smoke is all there, and it clears, and Arnie walks out, and that's it. He gets on the chopper.
And he got to the chopper.
And is there.
And there we are. And then they do the kind of British sitcom ending. You have been watching.
Hello.
I love that. I love the fact it does that. And they're all non-shots from the film, but in character. So they all kind of look to the camera, and then their name comes up and who they played. And you get Shane Black as Hawkins reading Sergeant Rock.
Nice.
Comic. And they're all kind of in character, apart from Anna's person who just smiles. But there's only 9 named cast in this film.
Right.
Which is really small. And I know the kind of sort of film is more like a really, really low budget film, which I don't think this is particularly. But it's a really
relatively, yeah.
I guess. It was only McTiernan's second film, I think. So he's gone on to do this and Die Hard and our last episode film and some others in between. Yeah, this is quite a lot of people in this film were actually relatively early in their career to make something that has had such an impact.
Small cast, as you say. Yep. I think, as far as special effects go, and how some films age, I think it's aged really, really well.
Yeah, I think it looks better than a lot of things now.
Yeah, compared to some of the other action films we've done that have aged.
Now, had they used the original design, of course, which I said to you earlier, I don't think that would be the case. Because apparently John McTiernan arrived on set, despite the fact that they'd hired Stan Winston, and the fact it was only a second film, with some designs that he's had done by a concept artist, which were very reptilian. The head was almost like a bug crossed with a crocodile. The legs worked kind of backwards.
Yes, they wanted knees that bent.
And they had Jean-Claude Van Damme playing the role, or in the suit, as we talked about before, which would have been ludicrous. And because of the cloaking, he had to wear a red one, which Van Damme apparently didn't like the design, because no one had told him that it wasn't actually going to be red in the film, and it was just being used as a reference.
No one actually told him that he wasn't actually going to essentially just be a body double.
Yeah.
He thought he'd be in the film showing off his martial arts skills. He just got off the boat, they said, essentially. Boat. Yeah. From boat. A boat from Brussels to America.
The boat in the sky.
Yeah, the boat from Brussels. So he was just kind of, he hated it. On set, he complained all the time.
And there was no opportunity in this film to do the splits, no opportunity to show his arse. So,
no opportunity to do any kind of fighting at all.
Exactly, so no, it wasn't... but I didn't even realise there were any set photos of him, but having seen a set photo of him today, sat there with Carl Weathers. In the scene where Carl Weathers had his arm gone, so either he stuck around or they'd shot some stuff before.
They shot some earlier things, then they showed it to the studio people, and they went, that's awful, you've got to change
And I don't know if this film was just a happy accident, or just it shows that you need a lot of people to make a really good film, and it's not necessarily one director's vision, or just the writing, or... Because... For me, we even in the films we really like, there's usually 5 or 6 things that we'll say don't really work or didn't go quite right. I think there was one in this film, and even that was minor. I don't really think this film... It holds up so well because it's a great sum of all the parts, and it's...
And I was going to say, you know that they talk about the special effects, obviously, by Stan Winston, and Arnie had worked with him before on The Terminator.
Yep.
And we saw how special they were. And even if you go back, and I know the animation isn't brilliant on the first one, but the special effects in themselves are amazing. And that when he designed the Predator, it was him who kind of sketched it, and he started to do it. And I can't remember who it was. It was either the director or Joel Silver said, I always wanted something with mandibles. And he was like, okay. So he included that and the kind of Rastafarian thing with the dreads, and he came up with the design, and then did some sketches and showed people, and they all went, yes, brilliant, that. But they were lucky because they had a break in filming which allowed them to do this, because the Predator doesn't actually show up physically until later on. So they got so lucky with this. It was amazing. So, are we ready?
I think so. Again, I'm going to give a clue before I give my score. As you know, the theme tune is my ringtone. Until recently I had a Predator keyring, but it broke. And I also have a Predator character that hangs on my charger lead. So just 3 clues that may or may not assist if you're guessing along as to how these scores might go.
Okay, it's time for some scores. Pete, you go first.
Okay. Well, it's easy, really. It's 5, but because we're not allowed to give 6.
No half bags and nothing more than 5.
Because I don't think there's a better action film.
Ooh, really?
I know there was I think I shared this on the Facebook group. Last year there was the poll of kind of, these kind of online polls where films go through to the next round and all this. And it ended up as a head-to-head between Predator and Die Hard, and Die Hard won. So John McTiernan did quite well in that. But for me, I'd pick Predator given the choice. And it's arguably my favourite film, full stop, but certainly my favourite genre film, because I like the fact it's horror in a way, it's sci-fi, and it's action, but it doesn't feel like it's being untrue to any of the parts. And it's just, this ensemble cast for me is exceptional. And it's Arnie, I think, at its best. By not overplaying it. But that's me.
Okay. I agree. I think that because they had a film where you had lots of big actors and big characters, where some of them were really playing to the rafters, like Jesse Ventura, Arnie was really accommodating. He didn't take all of the best lines, and behind the scenes stuff, they talk about how you get some stars who go through the script, see all the lines and go, is there any way my character can say that line and that line and that line, and they rewrite it so that they get all the best lines, where they're saying the opposite was kind of happening. Arnie was happy to have other people have their moments, and he was accommodating them, and he wanted them to shine because it made him look good too. So he wasn't trying to steal the limelight. He didn't need to. And he wanted to do this kind of ensemble film, having come off things like Commando, where he's the main guy who takes out, 89 people. He fought Bill Duke in the previous one. He fought so many other people and killed them all, and he was a one-man army. Isn't that the tagline of Commando? A one-man army or something. So he'd done that. He wanted to do something different, and he did this. And it does have that kind of group film effect, and it has got the horror element of almost like the haunted house where someone's getting knocked off one at a time until you're left to the quirky cheerleader or the clever geek who outwits the
massive Austrian.
the monster. Or the massive Austrian, who outwits the ghost. Or in this case, the scary alien who's 7'2.5". So it hasn't aged compared to some films. We said part that's because they do jungle and they're just guys in the jungle in fatigues with guns. The special effects haven't really aged. They're still just as creepy. You still get the awful whispering and all that kind of stuff.
A little bit of weeder.
So I think it's an absolutely cracking film. I almost don't want to go and watch Predator 2 again because I think I just get upset. Yeah. I'm not sure I want to watch Predators. But anyway,
Adrian Brody is just like Arnie.
Some of the cast there again could interest me but so I'm also going to give it 5 bags.
Yeah, look at that.
I think that's a clean sweep. I think it's the first time we've both done that as well. So tell me more about Predators. It was only a couple of years ago that it came out. And is it the reverse thing, where they've dumped a bunch of the worst humans who are supposed to be expert killers on a planet? Is that right?
That's right. I'm going to look it up because my memory is not what it was. Not what it was in 1987.
There's like a guy who's a Yakuza. You've got a serial killer. You've got, I don't know. Can't remember who else.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great cut. I mean, things like Lawrence Fishburne is in it, Danny Trejo, Topher Grace, Adrian Brody, as we said. So, I mean, immersed, there's a Russian soldier, a drug lord. It is kind of the worst people. They're parachuted into the Predator's planet.
Right.
And they're,
hunted by it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they join.
Right.
They join, rather than here, kind of joining the kind of a group that get picked off. These people kind of join forces to try and take it on. Just a slight flip. I say that if it was just, another film in this world, it's in that way it's kind of interesting. But when you look at it, it's kind of, because some of the scenes are kind of almost replayed. But at least it does do the kind of group of people. It is a step in the right direction. And yes, it is. Some of the characters, some of the weapons. Is it a homage? Is some bits of it absolutely nicked from the original film, which lets it down? But if you took it back one notch, it would probably, for me, be the second best Predator film. Though, again, I know a lot of people really like Predator 2.
Right. And it was all right. I'm not a favourite.
And I've read quite a few of the Dark Horse comics of Predator, not necessarily the Alien versus Predator, but the Predator on its own. And the stuff they do there I really like. Again, because most of it is against soldiers, and it works really well.
So that's it from us. We'll be back next episode, and thanks for listening. Good night.
Good night.
You have been listening to Bags of Action. No bullshit. You'd better stick around for the next episode, because if you're lying, I'll be back.